Well, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw has drawn the red line for social media platforms, for digital platforms, asserting that a fair revenue share must be given to those who create content. That has to be either established news organizations, independent creators from far-flung areas as well. Ashwini Vaishnaw was speaking at the Digital News Publishers Association conclave, where he said that social media platforms must share revenue in a fair way with the people who are creating that content. There was a broad spectrum that he referred to, be it news persons, conventional media, creators that are sitting in far-flung areas, be it social media influencers these days. Professors, researchers who are disseminating their work using this platform need to get remunerated for it. He says that's the principle everywhere. It's not just India that's calling for this equitable monetization models. The minister also then went on to say that he is requesting all of these platforms to rethink their policies. But if they don't do this voluntarily, then like many other countries, there would be a legal way which India would follow.
The platforms must also share revenue in a fair way with the people who are creating the content. Whether it is news persons, the conventional media, the creators sitting in far-flung areas, large influencers, small influencers, the professors and researchers who are disseminating their work using the platforms. Everywhere, the concern, the principle now has to be set right, and there has to be a fair share of revenue with the people who are creating the content.
So what exactly is the implication? Why is this significant? The fact that there is going to be mandatory revenue sharing, or there is a request that has been made, which means that social media platforms are expected to implement these fair revenue sharing models with content creators, including journalists, researchers and influencers. Whether they do it voluntarily or not, that's something that we will have to wait and watch out for. This neutrality claim is going to be ended on social media platforms. They're going to be no longer seen as neutral intermediaries, was the message that the Union Minister sent out, that social media platforms will have to be responsible for the content they publish. Whether they operate within a legal framework or not is something that will be looked into. The government is pushing for fair revenue share agreements between big tech platforms, creators and news publishers. Digital entities will be required to work within India's legal regulations, and if they fail to comply, then action will be taken. That's a message that the Indian government has sent on multiple other occasions. Compensating news publishers is going to be key, and that directive has come to the fore to ensure that news publishers are fairly compensated if their content is used. And it's not just these platforms, this big tech, that makes the money out of it. This would also have an impact on job creation and economic growth. If content creators are given a fair revenue share, these creators will then have a new economy, the creators' economy, so to say, which is projected to generate at least 25 lakh new jobs. So there is a larger picture that needs to be looked at as well. And there is a model that can be replicated. Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw also did speak of how the world follows a certain model and how this really works for influencers in other countries. France is one of them. There are written contracts about above 1,000 euros for commercial influence deals that is followed. There is a similar platform, a similar model that is in place in the United States as well, where child influencer earnings are legally protected. In the United Kingdom, there are non-compete clauses, and if those are broken, then there is legal scrutiny that these platforms can come under. So why is this significant in India's context? Well, I sat down with Senior Advisor with the I&B Ministry, Kanchan Gupta, earlier today. Listen into that conversation. Kanchan Gupta, Senior Advisor with the I&B Ministry, is now with us. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Now, we want to put this in perspective, sir, what Ashwini Vaishnaw said and what the significance of what this would be. Now, digital platforms will have to share revenue. That's really the red line that has been drawn by Mr. Vaishnaw. He's hinted at legal action as well. Do you think that this is going to be the first step to sort of ensure that media giants, tech giants, all of these digital platforms eventually fall in line?
Well, this would be in alignment with similar laws and rules which have now kicked in various countries. They have a rule in Canada, they have similar rules in some European countries, in Australia, and it's only fair that we should have a similar rule over here. If digital platforms are monetizing content, if they are making money out of it, it's only fair that a fair share of that money should go to the creator of the content or the person to whom the intellectual property right belongs.
But what about compliance? I mean, the minister there also said that the idea is that these social media platforms, these digital platforms do it voluntarily. But if they don't, then there will be a legal way that will be looked into. Now, in the past, we've seen that compliance is not as swift as we'd like it to be, especially in the case of Twitter, which is now X. There have been times where there have been legal hurdles. Their representatives have spoken to the parliamentary panel as well. And many say that very little has come out of that because India's law isn't robust enough.
No, I'm sorry. The IT rules have since been changed. For instance, platforms now get only 3 days to take action on any government order which is issued. They cannot sit on it. There is a compliance factor which has come into play. And let me again point out over here the deadline for compliance, for instance, in the UK is 48 hours. So, for the platforms to complain that they are being pushed into a corner, it's not fair. They just think that in India they can get away with impunity, whereas in the White West countries or in Australia, they have to be accountable for their actions, whether it is the content which they host, whether it is to do with revenue sharing, whether it is about being in compliance with local laws. For instance, in Australia, if you are 16 or below, you cannot have a social media account. In Britain, now they are cracking down on social media accounts for underage individuals. So when similar action is taken over here, sadly, the platforms, and then we have so-called internet freedom activists who are funded, we know by whom, who kick in and they start screaming that freedoms are being short-circuited. Now, that is not true. I mean, when you are trying to protect a child from whatever happens on the internet, you are actually protecting the child's freedom. You are not curbing the child's freedom. If you are asking the platform to be in compliance, it is because there are specific cultural, social, political aspects to the country where the platforms are operating.
Right.
I'll just give you one example. I mean, unrestricted free speech in India is not quite the same concept. I mean, it doesn't happen the same way. For instance, as it happens in America or in Europe. You can't have someone burning down a holy book in India and say that it is free speech. Probably in those countries you can get away with it. So we are not curbing freedom. We are just trying to bring the platforms in alignment with local laws, with sovereign laws, sovereign rules, and that's about it.
But how would that compliance actually work? I mean, like you said, there have been allegations that are made from certain quarters, and those motives can be questioned. But there are times when questions are being raised about how this enforcement can really be uniform and not selective.
No, there is nothing selective of about the enforcement. Enforcement of rules and laws are always uniform, and but we are a democracy. People go to court, they challenge the rules, they challenge the laws. We wait it out. The courts finally approve of the rules and laws. If there are any minor changes to be made, those are made, and we move on. I mean,
Sure.
for instance, this whole thing about fact checking. There was a huge hullabaloo about it that we are going to curb freedom of press over here. No, it is about government information. You cannot just put out wrong information about the government and claim that it is your right to do so. It will be fact checked, and we will tell the world that what you are putting out is wrong. And these are the reasons why it is wrong. The reasons are also provided in the public domain. Now, similarly, coming back to where we began, when big tech or big tech platforms are monetizing content, like for instance, if you are hosting a video on a platform and you have a certain brand equity, both the brand equity of your channel where you work and your own personal brand equity as a popular anchor. Now, surely there you have a right to a share of the revenue that the platform earns by running your video. Now, that is all we are saying is that be fair to this person, give her her share of revenue, fair share of revenue, and we'll let you do it voluntarily. Now, if you are not willing to do it voluntarily, if you think that you can get away without being in compliance with what we are telling you, we'll bring in a rule, we'll bring in a law, and we will ensure that you are in compliance.
And speaking of bringing in laws, you also spoke about it, about protecting children. That's something that Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Union Minister, also spoke about. There are several states that are also mulling, restrictions on social media apps for kids under 16. But how would that framework work? Do you think it will be a little more effective as a legal framework if it were to be a pan-India central law, so to say, rather than states bringing in their own framework?
No, see, the state cannot, I don't think states bringing in their own little laws is going to work, frankly. And I don't think it's quite in the domain of the states to do so. But I think the central government already, the IT rules that have been proposed, they bring in this idea that an underage person or a non-adult should not have a social media account, and there is an age cutoff over there. Again, this is something which we are not unique about it. We are not doing it for the first time. Australia has done it. There are
Yes.
other countries which have done it. In UK now, the social media accounts of teenagers and those who are non-adults, they are being very closely monitored, and even police action is being initiated. So we have to be mindful about protecting the children's rights. And if the protecting the children's rights means protecting them from all the I mean, I don't need to elaborate on it, all that goes on the internet
Sure.
in the name of freedom. Again, I mean, that freedom may be something which is socially, culturally, politically acceptable in the white West, but it may not be politically, socially, culturally acceptable in our country. And every country has its own sovereign rights to decide what suits its own cultural milieu, its social milieu, and its political processes. So it cannot be a one size fits all. I mean,
Yes.
the boardroom of these platforms, they cannot decide or they cannot overrule the sovereign laws and sovereign rules of individual countries. The sooner they get used to this idea, I think the better it would be for them.
And that's the message that the Union Minister has also sent out today. We'll have to leave it there. But Kanchan Gupta, thank you so much for speaking with us here and
Thank you.
sharing your perspective.